Hello, my horror-loving dudes. I'm KillJoy Jake, and today we're talking a little bit about Mr. Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund. Today is Robert's 76th birthday, so to celebrate, let's talk a little bit about the future of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Will we see the man of your dreams anytime soon? Let's get into it.
Well, sometimes that is better.
Now, in order to cover the present of what's going on with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, we must first look back into the past, specifically the last 13 years, this little time period where we haven't gotten any new Freddy movies, which has made old Jake here pretty sad. The last installment we got in this franchise was 2010's remake with the same title as the original. The film released on April 30th of 2010 with a $35 million budget. Now, although the film was poorly received initially, it still ended up making $116 million at the box office, making it a big success. Besides Freddy vs. Jason, which only made $1 million more than this one, it's the highest grossing film in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Due to its poor reception though, it would never get a sequel, which not too many fans are really upset about that, I don't think. There's many issues with the Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, but to me, the biggest thing is the script, which just harks on some of the worst things about the franchise for some reason. I'm of the opinion that Jackie Earle Haley is a great choice for Freddy Krueger, but the script he was working with was butts. Go watch Watchmen and tell me he's not a good actor. You can't. You simply can't. My man just needed a better script, and well, the studio started to realize that too, because flash forward 5 years later, in August of 2015, Warner Bros. And New Line announced that a new remake was coming. A second remake went into development, with orphan writer David Leslie Johnson also having Toby Emmerich, Walter Hamada, and Dave Neustadter producing it. Now, there are many reasons why we just simply have not gotten a Freddy movie since the 2010 film. First of all, the poor reception. But here's the thing about that. It's been 13 years. It's a good time to reinvent this franchise again, and people will give it a chance. It's been enough time that the sting from the 2010 movie has worn off. People are ready for Freddy again. But this movie just kept having problems, it kept getting delayed, and it just ended up not happening at all. And there's a couple of reasons, at least I think, that happened. You have Walter Hamada producing this. He's a big-time horror producer. Every Conjuring flick, the It movies, the guy has been attached to it in some way. The guy was super busy in 2015, which is basically the peak of the Conjuring franchise, 2013 to 2017. My man didn't exactly have time for old Freddy Krueger because he just had way too much on his plate, in my opinion, but there's also a lot of other problems as well. A year later in 2016, Brad Fuller, the co-owner of Platinum Dunes, the subsidiary that produced the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street from 2010, specifically said that the new film was in developmental hell. At this time, Robert Englund expressed interest in returning to the series for a cameo role. He later expressed interest in having Kevin Bacon portray Freddy Krueger instead of himself. Robert Englund has been saying for a while that he's kind of done playing Freddy, and he's even suggesting other actors to play the role because he's like, I can't do it anymore. We'll talk a little more about that in a second here, but Kevin Bacon playing Freddy Krueger, let's talk about that for a minute. While I do think that's a really solid choice, Kevin Bacon is also up there. Robert Englund is saying he's too old to do it. He's 76 years old. Well, Kevin Bacon's turning 65 this year. And I am in no way saying that old people can't play these monsters or final girls anymore. Look at Laurie Strode in the new Halloween movies. Fuck yeah, Jamie Lee. Me personally, my top choice for Freddy Krueger has been, and maybe always will be, Glenn Howerton from Always Sunny. Watch any episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia and tell me that Dennis Reynolds wouldn't be absolutely incredible as Freddy Krueger. He basically plays the sociopath on that show that might have killed people. Maybe. He gives me a real creepy vibe sometimes, man. He would be awesome as Freddy Krueger. Getting back to our Nightmare on Elm Street history lesson here, though, flashing forward from 2016 now to October of 2018, Robert Englund surprises us with a big cameo role as Freddy Krueger on The Goldbergs. Now, by 2018, people weren't really talking about Freddy Krueger anymore. Michael Myers was back on the big screen this October. People were hyped about that, but this had people kind of talking, man, we could use another Freddy movie. So then 2 months later in December of 2018, in an interview, David Leslie Johnson, the person who was supposed to write this second remake, had said that Warner Bros. Was more interested in the Conjuring franchise versus reviving Freddy Krueger. Regarding the second remake to A Nightmare on Elm Street, David Leslie Johnson said, "It's still happening. Nothing is percolating just yet. The Conjuring universe is sort of first and foremost on New Line Cinema's horror burner. Everybody wants to see Freddy again, I think, so I think it's inevitable at some point." Now, flash forward almost a year to September of 2019, when old Jake was starting up this channel and I only had 100 subscribers. What a time. What a fun time that was. It was announced that the film rights had reverted back to the Wes Craven estate. By November, the estate had begun work on future project pitches for new A Nightmare on Elm Street projects, including a feature film as well as a potential HBO Max series, with the intent to have Robert Englund reprise the role as Freddy Krueger. Now, obviously, right now when this video is coming out, it is almost 2023, and none of these things have happened. The biggest update we've gotten recently, though, is Robert Englund himself saying that he's done playing Freddy Krueger. In a recent interview with Variety, sadly, Robert Englund confirmed that his days of playing the iconic Dream Demon are finally over. In a quote, Englund said, "I'm too old and thick to play Freddy now. I just can't do fight scenes for more than one take anymore. I've got a bad neck and bad back and arthritis in my right wrist, so I have to hang it up, but I would love to cameo." Now, basically everything I've said in the last 2 minutes or so is kind of reinforcing my point that there's two big things that need to happen for a Nightmare on Elm Street film to, well, happen. One of those things is actually already happening, and it's not like a thing to celebrate or anything, but the Conjuring franchise is slowly going downhill with every new movie. Like, what did we just get in the past couple of years? Like Annabelle Comes Home and The Conjuring 3? I don't know, man. I mean, those are easily some of the weakest from this franchise, in my opinion. Now, we do have at least 2 more Conjuring films coming, including The Nun 2, which is slated for later this year, as well as The Conjuring 4, coming out sometime in 2024. Will those movies make the most money from this entire franchise, as well as be the highest rated on Rotten Tomatoes? I mean, it would be awesome if they were, but I'm just speculating that they're probably not going to be that. In my opinion, if I were Warner Bros., I would realize The Conjuring is kind of on this downward trend where maybe something like Nightmare on Elm Street, a simple, fun slasher flick, could be on the up. Look at Terrifier 2. It's one of the only films doing that nowadays, and it's super successful and beloved by horror fans. Now, I don't want to say that I don't like the Conjuring films, because I do, but the most recent ones just haven't been my favorite. If Warner Bros. And New Line should focus on anything at the moment, I think it's definitely Freddy Krueger. But there is one more thing that needs to happen if we're going to get a new Nightmare film. They gotta find the right person to play Freddy Krueger, because no matter how you feel about the 2010 film, maybe you agree with me that Jackie Earle Haley was actually pretty good in the role, but had a pretty poor script. No matter how you feel about that film kind of raised this stigma about anybody else playing Freddy Krueger, that only Robert Englund can do it. In my opinion, that's highly debatable, but Robert Englund obviously has played the character the best, but could someone else do it just as good as Robert Englund? Maybe a Kevin Bacon, a Glenn Howerton? I think yes, with the right script. I can see why Warner Bros. And New Line are a little hesitant to get back on the old Freddy train, but now is the time to strike, man. I mean, with Terrifier 2 being super successful, this big comeback of slasher movies we've been seeing just for the past 5 years, it's time for Freddy Krueger. And it's not like the biggest commitment of a film. Throw like $30 million at an up-and-coming horror director, get a good writer attached, and find somebody good to play Freddy Krueger, someone who makes sense for the role and maybe is a little younger. Get Heather Langenkamp back, have Robert Englund do a little cameo. It'll be a fun movie. I bet it'll make a lot of money too. And then if it's successful, you got yourself a Halloween 2018 situation on your hands where you're doing a whole revival of the franchise. And if anybody from Warner Bros. And New Lines is watching, that means money. Money, money, money. Don't tell nobody, but I'm trying to trick the studios into making another Freddy film for us horror fans. Ha ha ha. Shh. But in all seriousness, I do believe that a new Freddy movie would be super lucrative for the company, as well as just be another fun little requel film for us horror fans to enjoy. I mean, listen, I don't like to give a whole lot of positives to that 2010 film. It's a disaster, but the opening scene is creepy as and maybe one of my favorite sequences involving Freddy Krueger across any movie ever. Hot take. I know. As of right now, it's just rumblings and rumors about a new Nightmare on Elm Street film coming out, like for real, but maybe we'll get some confirmation about it sometime in the future. Your boy will keep you updated. What do you think about a new Nightmare on Elm Street film? Do you think Robert Englund's the only person who can play Freddy and they should just put this series to bed, or would you like to see the requel to this franchise finally happen? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this brand new update video on the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content in the future. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to see this channel grow, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.